My name is Emily, and I am 28 years old. 10 years ago, on the night of my 18th birthday, I stood alone in front of the refrigerator at midnight. In my hands was a half-eaten birthday cake. The frosting still showed part of a message that read, "Grats Madison." It was my sister's cake, not mine. But that was not even the worst thing that happened that day. Before I begin this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt invisible in your own family. This one is for you. I was born in a small town in Ohio, the first daughter of the Thornton family. My father, Richard, worked as a senior accountant at a local manufacturing company. My mother, Patricia, was a part-time nurse at the community hospital. 2 years after I arrived, my sister Madison came into the world. From the moment she took her first breath, everything changed. Madison was what my mother called her little gem. She had golden blonde hair that caught the sunlight like spun silk. Her eyes were the same shade of crystal blue as our mother's. She grew tall and graceful with the kind of natural beauty that made strangers stop and compliment her on the street. I looked different. My hair was dark brown, almost black in certain lights. My eyes were a deep shade of brown. I was small for my age, with a quiet presence that seemed to fade into the background. I took after my grandmother on my father's side, a woman who had passed away before I was born. My mother never let me forget this. I remember being 5 years old and standing in our front yard while my mother chatted with our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Madison was twirling around in a new pink dress, showing off for the adults. Mrs. Patterson smiled and said, "What a beautiful family you have, Patricia." My mother beamed and pulled Madison close. She said, "Thank you, Madison takes after me. And Emily, well, she is different. Different." That word stuck with me like a splinter under my skin. I was too young to understand what it meant, but I knew from the way my mother said it that different was not a compliment. As the years passed, the gap between Madison and me grew wider. My parents enrolled Madison in ballet classes when she was 5. Piano lessons followed at 6. Swimming lessons came at 7. Every week, my mother drove Madison to one activity after another, her schedule filled with opportunities to shine. I wanted to take art classes. Drawing was the one thing that made me feel alive. I would spend hours sketching anything I could see, filling notebooks with trees and houses and faces. When I was 8, I gathered my courage and asked my mother if I could take lessons at the community center. She barely looked up from the magazine she was reading. "Art classes cost money, Emily," she said. "And what future is there in drawing pictures? Madison's activities are investments in her future." "You understand." I did not understand. But I nodded and walked away. Instead of lessons, I taught myself. Every Saturday, I walked to the public library and borrowed books on drawing techniques. I practiced in secret, hiding my sketchbooks under my bed where no one would find them. Art became my refuge, the one place where I could be myself without comparison. The double standard in our house was impossible to ignore. When Madison brought home a report card with mostly B grades, my parents celebrated. They took her out for ice cream and praised her for trying so hard. When I brought home straight A grades, my mother would glance at the paper and say, "Good, that is what you are supposed to do." There was no celebration, no ice cream, no praise. Excellence was expected of me. Mediocrity was rewarded in Madison. I remember Madison's 10th birthday party like it was yesterday. My parents rented out the backyard of our house and transformed it into a wonderland. There were pink and purple balloons everywhere. A professional clown performed magic tricks. 20 of Madison's friends from school came and they played games and ate cake and laughed for hours. My mother had ordered a 3-tier cake from the best bakery in town. It was decorated with fondant flowers and had Madison's name written in elegant script. My father hired a photographer to capture every moment. I stood on the edge of the party watching my sister blow out her candles. I was 12 years old, and I could still remember my own 10th birthday 2 years earlier. There had been no party, no clown, no friends. Just a regular family dinner with a store-bought cake from the supermarket. My mother had not even put candles on it. When I asked why Madison's birthday was so special while mine was not, my mother pulled me aside. Her voice was sharp. "Emily," she said, "you do not need all that fuss. You are stronger than Madison. She needs more support. You can handle things on your own." I learned to stop asking questions after that. I learned to expect nothing so that I would not be disappointed. But there was one person who saw me, really saw me: my grandmother Ruth. My mother's mother lived alone in a small house about 30 minutes away. She was a retired school teacher with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Every summer, my parents sent me to stay with Grandma Ruth. They said it was because she needed company, but I knew the real reason. They wanted to focus on Madison without me around. Madison got to attend expensive summer camps for gymnastics and dance. I got sent to Grandma Ruth's house, but I did not mind. Those summers with my grandmother were the happiest times of my childhood. Grandma Ruth was the one who taught me that my worth was not determined by my family's opinion. She would sit with me on her back porch watching the sunset and tell me stories about her own life. "Emily," she would say, "you have a fire inside you that they cannot see. One day that fire will burn so bright that everyone will have to notice. Do not let anyone put it out." She was the first person to encourage my art. On my 12th birthday, while my parents gave me practical things like socks and school supplies, Grandma Ruth handed me a wrapped box. Inside was a professional set of drawing pencils and watercolors. They must have cost her a month of her retirement income. "I keep this for you," she whispered. "Hide it if you have to, but never stop creating." I did hide it. I kept that art set under my bed alongside my secret sketchbooks. It became my most treasured possession. Grandma Ruth also did something else that I did not discover until years later. She opened a savings account in my name and deposited a small amount of money every month. She told me about it when I was 16. "This is your freedom fund," she said. "Your parents will not help you the way they help Madison. I know this, so I am giving you a head start. Use it when you need to fly." When I was 16, Grandma Ruth suffered a mild stroke. Her health declined after that, and I could not visit her as often. But she wrote me letters, always reminding me of the fire she believed I carried inside. As my 18th birthday approached, I allowed myself to hope. This was my milestone birthday, the day I would officially become an adult. Surely I thought my parents would acknowledge this. Surely they would see that I deserved something special too. I had no idea that my 18th birthday would become the worst day of my life, but it would also become the day that changed everything. May 15th arrived with a clear blue sky and warm spring air. I woke up that morning with a flutter of anticipation in my chest. 18 years old. This was it. The beginning of adulthood. I lay in bed for a few minutes, imagining what the day might bring. Maybe my parents had planned a surprise. Maybe there would be balloons downstairs, or a special breakfast, or at least a heartfelt happy birthday when I walked into the kitchen. I got dressed and went downstairs, my heart beating faster with each step. The kitchen was empty, except for my mother, who stood by the counter with her phone pressed to her ear. She was speaking in rapid, excited tones to someone on the other end. "I know," she said. "We are so proud of her. Yes, we will celebrate tonight. Okay, talk soon." She hung up and finally noticed me standing in the doorway. "Emily," she said without looking up, "make yourself some breakfast." "I am busy." That was it. No happy birthday, no acknowledgement that today was supposed to be special. I waited for a moment, thinking maybe she had forgotten and would remember any second. But she just kept scrolling through her phone, completely absorbed. "Good morning," I said quietly. I made myself a bowl of cereal and sat at the table alone. My father had already left for work. He had not said anything to me either. Madison was still asleep because she had stayed up late the night before, refreshing her email over and over, waiting for college acceptance letters. Maybe they are planning something for tonight, I told myself. Maybe this is all part of the surprise. I went to school and tried to focus on my classes, but my mind kept wandering. A few of my classmates wished me happy birthday. My art teacher, Mrs. Coleman, gave me a card she had made herself. Those small gestures meant more to me than I could express. During lunch, I received a text message from my mother. "Come home right after school. Important news." My heart leaped. This had to be it. They were throwing me a surprise party. I spent the rest of the day imagining what it might be like. Maybe they had decorated the house. Maybe they had invited my few close friends. Maybe, just maybe, they had finally decided to treat me the way they treated Madison. When the final bell rang, I practically ran to my car. I drove home with music blasting, singing along to my favorite songs. This was going to be a good day. I could feel it. I pulled into our driveway and immediately noticed something strange. There were cars everywhere. My Aunt Janet's minivan, my Uncle Robert's truck, several other vehicles I recognized as belonging to various relatives. My confusion turned to excitement. They really had thrown a party. All these people were here for me. I walked through the front door with a smile on my face. The smile disappeared instantly. The living room was decorated with balloons and streamers just as I had imagined. But the banner hanging across the room did not say Happy Birthday, Emily. It said, Congratulations, Madison, in giant gold letters. My sister stood in the center of the room, surrounded by family members holding a piece of paper above her head. She was laughing and crying at the same time. I got in, she shrieked. Ohio State accepted me. I got the scholarship. The room erupted in cheers. Everyone rushed forward to hug Madison to congratulate her, to tell her how proud they were. I stood frozen in the doorway. No one noticed me for what felt like an eternity. Finally, my mother looked up and saw me standing there. Emily, she said, come help me set up the food in the kitchen. That was all. No explanation, no apology, just an order to go work while everyone else celebrated my sister. I walked to the kitchen on autopilot. My Aunt Janet, my mother's younger sister, was already there arranging plates. She looked at me with something like sympathy in her eyes. She lowered her voice. Is today not your birthday? She asked. Before I could answer, my mother breezed into the kitchen. Yes, she said dismissively, but Madison's news is more important. Emily understands. I did not understand. I would never understand. But I nodded because that was what I had been trained to do. I arranged food on plates. I carried trays to the living room. I watched my family celebrate my sister while they forgot I existed. The party went on for hours. Madison received gift after gift. My parents gave her the newest iPhone, which cost over $1,000. Aunts and uncles handed her envelopes of cash. Someone gave her a designer handbag. The pile of presents grew higher and higher. No one gave me anything. No one even wished me happy birthday except for Aunt Janet, who squeezed my hand when no one was looking and whispered the words I needed to hear. When it came time for cake, my mother brought out a beautiful 3-tier creation covered in pink roses. Everyone sang happy birthday to Madison, even though it was not her birthday. They sang congratulations instead of the traditional song, but the effect was the same. Madison blew out candles that should have been mine. I sat in the corner of the room trying to make myself invisible. I had perfected this skill over 18 years. It was easy to disappear when no one was looking for you in the first place. The party finally ended around 10 o'clock. Relatives hugged Madison goodbye and told her how proud they were. Some of them did not even acknowledge me as they walked out the door. When everyone was gone, my mother turned to me. "Clean up this mess," she said. "I am exhausted." She went upstairs without another word. My father followed. Madison retreated to her room to play with her new phone. I cleaned alone. I picked up wrapping paper and empty plates. I swept the floor and wiped down the tables. I put away the leftover food. It was almost midnight when I finished. The house was dark and quiet. Everyone else had gone to bed. I could not sleep. My mind was racing with thoughts I could not quiet. So I went back downstairs and opened the refrigerator. That is when I saw it. Madison's birthday cake, or what was left of it, sat on the middle shelf. More than half of it had been eaten during the party. The frosting was smeared and the decorative roses were mostly gone. The part of the message that remained read, "Greats Madison," in crooked pink letters. I stared at that cake for a long time. Then I took out a knife and cut myself a small slice. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark and ate my sister's leftover cake on my 18th birthday. That is how my father found me. He had come downstairs for a glass of water. He stopped when he saw me sitting there, fork in hand, tears streaming down my face. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Dad," I finally said, "do you know what today is?" He was quiet for so long that I thought he would not answer. "Your birthday," he said at last. "I know. But Madison needed—" I did not let him finish. "Madison always needs," I said, "and I always understand." "Right." He did not respond. He just stood there looking at me with an expression I could not read. Then he got his water and went back upstairs. I sat alone in the dark until my tears dried on my cheeks. And somewhere between midnight and dawn, I made a decision. I was going to leave this house. I was going to build a life where I was not invisible. I was going to become someone not to prove anything to my family, but to prove something to myself. I did not need their approval anymore. I just needed to get out. 2 weeks after my birthday, I received a letter that changed everything. It was from the University of Cincinnati, informing me that I had been accepted into their architecture program. Architecture had been my dream for years. It combined my love of art with practical design creativity with structure. I had spent countless hours building a portfolio of my work sketching buildings and interior spaces, teaching myself about form and function. I held that acceptance letter like it was made of gold. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. That evening, I showed the letter to my parents. I tried to keep my voice steady as I explained what this meant to me. "This is a top program," I said. "I have wanted this my whole life. I know it is expensive, but I can apply for scholarships and work part-time," and my mother cut me off. "Architecture," she said with a dismissive wave. "That is such an unstable career. Why do you not study nursing like me? At least you will always have a job." I tried to explain that I had thought about this carefully, that I had a plan. But she was not listening. My father finally spoke. "How much does it cost?" he asked. I told him. "About $25,000 per year for tuition alone, not including room and board." He shook his head slowly. "We cannot afford to send both of you to school," he said. "Madison already has her spot at Ohio State. We have been saving for this." I felt my stomach drop. "What about me?" I asked. "You have been saving for Madison. What about my education?" My mother's expression hardened. "You can go to community college right here in town," she said. "It is much cheaper. Or get a job and save up for a few years. Madison needs more support than you do. She is not as strong as you are." There it was again. That excuse they had been using my entire life. Madison needed more. Madison was fragile. Madison required special treatment. And I was strong. I could handle disappointment. I could survive on scraps. I looked at my parents and saw them clearly for the first time. They were not going to help me. They never had been. The money they had saved was Madison's money. Their attention was Madison's attention. Their love, whatever love they had to give, belonged to Madison. I was just the other daughter, the strong one, the one who did not need anything. Something inside me shifted in that moment. The last thread of hope I had been holding on to finally snapped. "Fine," I said quietly. "I will figure it out myself." I walked out of the room before they could see me cry. The next day, I drove to Grandma Ruth's house. I had not seen her in months because of her declining health, but I needed her wisdom now more than ever. She was sitting in her favorite chair by the window when I arrived. She looked frailer than I remembered, but her eyes still sparkled with that familiar warmth. I told her everything. About the birthday party, about the cake, about the rejection of my college dreams. Grandma Ruth listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached out and took my hand. "I knew this day would come," she said. "I have been preparing for it." She asked me to get a small box from her bedroom closet. Inside was a bank book with my name on it. I opened it and stared at the balance. $12,000. "I have been putting money away for you every month since you were a little girl," Grandma Ruth explained. "It is not much, but it is yours. Your freedom fund." I could not speak. Tears were streaming down my face. "This will not pay for 4 years of college," she continued, "but it will give you a start. The rest you will have to earn yourself. And I know you can." She pulled out another envelope and handed it to me. "This is a letter of introduction to my old friend Helen," she said. "She lives in Cincinnati. She has a spare room she will rent to you for almost nothing. I already wrote to her about you." I looked at my grandmother, this woman who had believed in me when no one else did. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you do all this for me?" She smiled and squeezed my hand. "Because you have a fire in you, Emily. I have seen it since you were a little girl. Do not let them put it out. Go to Cincinnati. Build your life. Become who you were meant to be." I hugged her for a long time. That was the last real conversation I ever had with my grandmother. But her words stayed with me. They became the foundation of everything I built afterward. 1 week before Madison was scheduled to leave for Ohio State, I made my announcement. I am leaving, I told my parents at dinner. I am moving to Cincinnati. My mother looked up surprised. Where did you get money for that? She demanded. I have been saving, I said. It was not entirely a lie. She scoffed. And what are you going to do there? I am going to school. I have a place to stay. I will be fine. Madison laughed from across the table. Sure, she said. You will probably end up waiting tables for the rest of your life. I looked at my sister, at this person who had everything handed to her while I fought for scraps. I did not feel angry. I just felt tired. Maybe I said. But at least I will be doing it on my own. The day I left, no one offered to drive me to the bus station. No one helped me carry my bags. No one hugged me goodbye. I packed one small suitcase with my clothes, a backpack with my art supplies, and the box from Grandma Ruth containing everything that mattered. My sketchbooks, my drawing set, the bank book with my freedom fund. I walked to the bus station alone. I bought a one-way ticket to Cincinnati. As the bus pulled away from my hometown, I watched the familiar streets disappear through the window. I thought about everything I was leaving behind, the house where I had never felt at home, the family that had never seen me, the sister who had always been the favorite. I did not look back. I was 18 years old. I had $12,000, a suitcase of clothes, and a burning determination to prove that I was worth something. That was more than enough. Cincinnati was bigger and louder and more overwhelming than anything I had experienced before. But it was also full of possibilities. Helen, Grandma Ruth's friend, turned out to be a kind woman in her 60s who lived in a modest apartment near downtown. She gave me a small room with a single bed, a desk, and a window that looked out onto a tree-lined street. The rent was $300 a month, almost nothing by city standards. My first year was about survival. I enrolled at the local community college to start taking prerequisite courses. The credits were cheaper there, and I knew I could transfer them later once I had saved enough money. I worked 3 jobs. In the mornings, I served coffee at a cafe near campus. In the afternoons, I tutored students in math and writing. In the evenings, I did freelance graphic design work for small businesses, using the skills I had taught myself over years of secret practice. Some days I slept only 4 or 5 hours. I ate cheap meals that I cooked myself. I did not buy new clothes or go out with friends. Every dollar I earned went toward tuition or savings. It was exhausting. There were nights when I lay in my tiny room and wondered if I was crazy for doing this. Nights when I missed my grandmother so badly that I cried myself to sleep. But I kept going. I had promised myself and Grandma Ruth that I would not give up. By the end of that first year, I had saved enough money to apply for transfer admission to the University of Cincinnati's architecture program. My grades from community college were excellent. My portfolio had grown stronger. When the acceptance letter came with news of a partial scholarship based on academic merit, I sat on my bed and cried happy tears for the first time in years. The second year of my journey brought unexpected tragedy. I received a phone call one morning telling me that Grandma Ruth had been hospitalized. Another stroke worse than the first. I took a week off from school and work and caught the first bus back to Ohio. When I arrived at the hospital, my family was already there. My mother barely looked at me. Madison glanced up from her phone and said nothing. My father nodded but did not come to greet me. I walked past them and went straight to my grandmother's room. She was hooked up to machines, her face pale against the white pillow. But when she saw me, her eyes lit up. "Emily," she whispered. I sat beside her bed and held her hand. "I did it, Grandma," I said. "I got into the architecture program. I am doing it." She smiled, and for a moment she looked like herself again. "I am so proud of you," she said. "Keep going. Do not stop." Those were the last words she ever spoke to me. She slipped into a coma that night and passed away before dawn. I was sitting alone in the hospital room when it happened. My parents had gone home to sleep. Madison had left hours earlier. I was the only one there to hold her hand at the end. The funeral was a small affair. Family members came and went offering condolences that felt hollow. My mother spent most of the time complaining about the cost of the service. Madison checked her phone every few minutes. Then came the reading of the will. My grandmother had left her small house to me. Not to my mother, her own daughter. Not to Madison. To me. My mother's reaction was immediate and explosive. "This is wrong," she shouted at the lawyer. My mother was not thinking clearly. Emily manipulated her. I sat in silence as my mother demanded that I sign over the house. She insisted that it was rightfully hers. She called me selfish and ungrateful. Madison joined in. "You do not need a house," she said. "You have nothing. We actually have lives." I looked at them both, these people who shared my blood but had never shared their love. "Grandma made her decision," I said calmly. "I am not giving up what she wanted me to have." My mother's face turned red with rage. "Get out!" she screamed. "Get out of this house and never come back. You are not my daughter anymore." I stood up. "You never treated me like your daughter anyway," I said. "So nothing has really changed." I left immediately after the funeral. I did not say goodbye. There was nothing left to say. I sold Grandma Ruth's house a few months later. It was too far away for me to maintain, and I needed the money more than I needed a building. The sale brought $75,000, enough to pay off my remaining student loans and give me a cushion as I focused on my studies. The years that followed were filled with hard work. In my junior year, I landed an internship at one of Cincinnati's top architecture firms. I worked harder than anyone else there. I arrived early and stayed late. I took on extra projects and volunteered for difficult assignments. My supervisor noticed. My professors noticed. Doors began to open. When I graduated, I was first in my class. I won the department's award for outstanding student achievement. The firm where I had interned offered me a full-time position immediately. I spent the next 3 years climbing the ladder. Junior architect became senior architect. Small projects became large ones. My name started appearing in industry publications. People began to recognize my work. At 27 years old, I made a decision that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. I opened my own firm, Thornton Architecture Studio. I kept the family name not because of my parents, but because of Grandma Ruth. She had been a Thornton too, and she was the only one who ever believed in me. Starting a business was the hardest thing I had ever done, but I had been doing hard things my whole life. This was just one more mountain to climb, and climb it I did. While I was building my empire from nothing, my sister Madison was watching hers crumble. I did not know the details until much later. I had cut off all contact with my family after Grandma Ruth's funeral. But news has a way of traveling, and eventually pieces of Madison's story reached me through distant relatives and old acquaintances. Madison graduated from Ohio State with a degree in communications and a grade point average that was nothing special. She had coasted through college on my parents' money, never having to work, never having to struggle. After graduation, she discovered that the real world was not as forgiving as our family home. She bounced from job to job, never lasting more than 6 months anywhere. There was always an excuse. The boss was unfair. The coworkers were jealous. The work was beneath her talents. She never considered that the problem might be her. My parents continued to support her financially. They paid her rent. They bought her a car. They gave her spending money whenever she asked. Madison had never learned to take care of herself because she had never needed to. At 25, Madison married a man named Derek. He came from a wealthy family and seemed like the perfect solution to her problems. She would never have to work again. She would be taken care of forever. But marriage to Derek did not turn out the way she expected. Derek discovered that Madison had been lying to him about many things: her accomplishments, her spending habits, the credit card debt she had accumulated behind his back. By the time he found out, she had burned through most of his savings on designer clothes and expensive dinners. They divorced after 2 years. Madison got nothing because Derek had insisted on a prenuptial agreement that she had signed without reading carefully. She moved back in with our parents at 27, but things had changed there too. My father had retired, and their income was now limited to his pension and Social Security. My mother's arthritis had gotten worse, and she could no longer work. The savings account that had once funded Madison's dreams was now nearly empty. Madison was 28 years old, unemployed, and more than $30,000 in credit card debt. She had no skills, no plan, and no one to bail her out this time. I learned most of this from Aunt Janet before she passed away. She had stayed in touch with me over the years, sending occasional emails to let me know she was thinking of me. She was the one who told me that Madison was struggling and that my parents were barely getting by. She also told me something else. She said that my mother had seen an article about me in a business magazine. The headline read, "Emily Thornton, Cincinnati's rising star in architecture, opens her own firm at 27. According to Aunt Janet, my mother read that article 3 times without saying a word. I do not know what she was thinking. Part of me hoped she felt proud. A larger part knew she probably felt something closer to regret. Several months after that article was published, I received an unexpected phone call. It was my father. His voice sounded older than I remembered, tired and uncertain. "Emily," he said, "I know it has been a long time. I need to ask you something." I waited in silence. He explained the situation. My mother's medical bills were piling up. Madison's debt was overwhelming. They needed help. How much, I asked. $20,000, he said, to pay off Madison's credit cards and cover your mother's treatments. I thought about everything they had put me through. The birthday they forgot, the college fund they denied me, the years of feeling invisible in my own home. But I also thought about the person I had become, and I realized that holding on to anger would only hurt me. "I will send money for Mom's medical expenses," I said finally. "But Madison's debt is her responsibility. She needs to learn to take care of herself." My father tried to argue, but I held firm. "I have been taking care of myself since I was 18, I reminded him. "Madison can do the same." I transferred $10,000 for my mother's medical bills. It was the right thing to do, even if they had never done the right thing for me. But I would not enable Madison any longer. That was not love. That was just another form of the same poison that had been destroying our family for years. 3 months later, I received news that Aunt Janet had passed away from cancer. She had been sick for a while, but had not wanted to worry anyone. I decided to go back for her funeral. She had been kind to me when no one else was. She deserved that much. I drove from Cincinnati to Ohio on a gray autumn morning. I wore a simple black dress that cost more than anything I had owned as a teenager. I carried myself with the confidence of someone who had built her life from the ground up. When I walked into the funeral home, I felt the shift in the room. People turned to look at me. Whispers followed in my wake. "Is that Emily? The one who left? Look at her now. I heard she has her own company." I ignored them all and walked straight to Aunt Janet's casket. I placed a bouquet of white lilies beside her and bowed my head. "Thank you," I whispered. "You saw me when no one else did." When I turned around, I found myself face to face with my family. My mother stood a few feet away, looking older and smaller than I remembered. My father was beside her, his shoulders stooped, and next to them was Madison. My sister had changed. Gone was the confident golden girl who had always been the center of attention. In her place stood a woman who looked tired and defeated. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair was dull. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was a mixture of shock and something else. Recognition, maybe. Or shame. For a long moment, none of us spoke. My mother was the first to break the silence. "You came," she said. Her voice was flat, almost emotionless. "I came for Aunt Janet," I replied. "She was good to me." My mother flinched slightly at the implication, but she did not argue. She looked me up and down, taking in my tailored dress, my confident posture, the subtle signs of success that I wore like armor. "You look different," she said. "I am different," I agreed. 10 years will do that." My father cleared his throat awkwardly. "Emily," he said, "it is good to see you." I nodded at him, but did not smile. I was not there for reconciliation. I was there to pay my respects and leave. After the service, I slipped outside for some air. The funeral home had felt suffocating, filled with relatives who had never cared about me pretending to care now that I was successful. I was standing by my car when I heard footsteps behind me. "Emily, wait." I turned to find Madison hurrying across the parking lot. Her heels clicked against the asphalt and her breath came in short gasps. I stood still and watched her approach. When she reached me, she stopped a few feet away. Up close, I could see that she had been crying. Her mascara was smudged and her eyes were red-rimmed. "What do you want, Madison?" I asked. She struggled to find words. Her mouth opened and closed several times before anything came out. How she finally managed. How did you do it? I raised an eyebrow. Do what? She gestured vaguely at me, at my car, at everything. This. All of this. You had nothing. You left with nothing. And now you have your own company and nice clothes and a life. How I considered her question for a moment before answering. I worked, I said simply. Every single day for 10 years. I took jobs I hated. I ate cheap food. I did not buy things I could not afford. I saved every penny. I studied harder than everyone around me. I never stopped, not once. Madison's face crumpled. But it should not have been like that, she said. You should have had help. Mom and Dad should have helped you like they helped me. I almost laughed. Yes, I said. They should have, but they did not. So I helped myself. Tears were streaming down Madison's face now. I am sorry, she choked out. I am sorry for your birthday. I am sorry for all the times I was horrible to you. I am sorry for everything. I stood there and let her words wash over me. I had waited a long time to hear them, but now that they were here, I realized they did not change anything. I accept your apology, I said carefully, but that does not erase what happened. And it does not mean I am going to rescue you now. Madison looked startled. I was not asking. Yes, you were. I interrupted gently. Maybe not with words, but you want me to fix things for you, pay off your debt, give you a job, make everything okay. She did not deny it. I cannot do that. I continued. Not because I am cruel, but because it would not help you. You need to learn to stand on your own feet. I did. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, but it was also the best thing that ever happened to me. I reached into my purse and pulled out a business card. This is a career counseling service, I said. They help people figure out what they want to do and how to get there. Call them, do the work, build something for yourself. Madison took the card with trembling hands. But I do not know how, she whispered. I have never had to try before. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and for the first time I did not feel resentment. I felt pity. No one knows how at the beginning, I said. I certainly did not. But you will figure it out if you actually want to. Madison stared at the card, then back at me. Do you hate me? She asked in a small voice. I shook my head. I used to. For a long time I hated you and Mom and Dad. But I do not have the energy for that anymore. I am too busy living my life. I opened my car door. You are still young, Madison. You have time to turn things around. But you have to do it yourself. No one else can do it for you. I got into my car and started the engine. Through the window I could see Madison standing there, clutching the business card to her chest. Tears were still falling, but something in her expression had changed. A spark of something. Determination, maybe. Or hope. I drove away without looking back. Later that night my father called me. His voice was thick with emotion. Emily, he said, I need to talk to you. I listened as he apologized for everything. For the birthday that was forgotten, for the college fund that was denied, for years of favoritism that he had witnessed but never challenged. I knew it was wrong, he said. I knew your mother treated you differently, but I never stood up for you. I was a coward, and I am sorry. I sat in my hotel room and listened to my father cry on the phone. When he was finished, I said what I needed to say. I appreciate you telling me this, Dad, but I do not need your apology anymore. I spent years waiting for you and Mom to see me, to love me the way you loved Madison. That wait nearly destroyed me. But I stopped waiting. I built a life without your approval, and I am happier now than I have ever been. There was a long silence. Does that mean you will never forgive us? He asked. I thought about it. I am not sure about forgiveness, I said honestly. But I am not angry anymore. That is the best I can offer right now. We hung up and I sat alone in the quiet room. Something had shifted inside me. The weight I had been carrying for 10 years felt lighter somehow. Not gone completely, but manageable. I was ready to move forward. It has been 6 months since Aunt Janet's funeral. My company continues to grow. We just landed our biggest project yet, a mixed-use development that will transform an entire city block. My team has expanded to 12 people, and we are looking to hire more. I am also in a relationship now. His name is Garrett. He is a structural engineer who I met through work. He is kind and patient, and he listens when I talk about my past without trying to fix anything. He just holds my hand and tells me I am the strongest person he has ever known. I am learning to accept love. It is harder than I thought it would be. When you grow up feeling unwanted, you build walls around your heart. Taking them down is slow, scary work, but I am doing it, one brick at a time. I got news about Madison a few weeks ago. She found a job at a retail store. It is not glamorous, and the pay is not great, but it is something. She is also taking online courses in accounting at night. She emailed me to let me know. I think she wanted my approval. I wrote back and said I was proud of her. Because I am. Not proud like a parent is proud of a child. Proud like one survivor is proud of another when they finally start fighting back. She has a long road ahead of her, but at least she is walking it now. My relationship with my parents is still complicated. We talk occasionally, short phone calls about nothing important. I sent my mother flowers on her birthday. She sent me a card on mine. It is not forgiveness. It is not reconciliation. It is just coexistence. Maybe that is enough. Maybe it is not. I am still figuring it out. What I do know is this. I spent 18 years trying to earn love that was never going to be given. I spent the next 10 years learning that the only love I truly needed was my own. Grandma Ruth was right. I had a fire inside me. All those years of being ignored, being dismissed, being made to feel invisible, that fire never went out. It just burned quietly, waiting for its chance to blaze. Now it lights my way forward. When I think about that girl standing alone in the kitchen at midnight eating leftover cake on her 18th birthday, I want to reach back through time and hold her. I want to tell her that the pain will not last forever, that the people who hurt her will one day see her shine, that she will build a life so beautiful, so full, so completely her own, that no one will ever be able to make her feel small again. I want to tell her that she is worthy, that she has always been worthy, that her worth was never determined by her mother's coldness, or her father's silence, or her sister's cruelty. I want to tell her to hold on, because the best is yet to come, but I cannot reach her. So instead, I am telling you. If you are watching this and you feel invisible in your own family, if you feel like you are always the one who is overlooked and undervalued, if you are eating the leftover cake while someone else gets the party, I want you to hear me. You are not alone. And this is not the end of your story. Your worth is not determined by people who cannot see it. Your potential is not limited by those who refuse to nurture it. Your future is not written by the hands that tried to hold you back. You have a fire inside you. Do not let anyone put it out. One day you will look back at this moment and realize it was just the beginning of your rise, the beginning of your freedom, the beginning of the life you were always meant to live, and the people who made you feel small. They will look at who you have become and wonder how you did it, but you will not need to explain, because by then, their opinion will not matter anymore. You will have already won. I would love to hear from you. Have you ever felt like the invisible child in your family? How did you overcome it? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the people who need encouragement the most are the ones who ask for it the least. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And wherever you are, whatever you are going through, remember this. You have a fire inside you. Let it burn.